Well, happy Wednesday, youth. I don't know where you are tonight, but I hope that you're inside and not out here like me. I needed to film the lesson, and I decided I wanted to do it out here for two reasons. One, me and puppies haven't gotten to spend much... Oh, baby, you okay, Leo? Oh, goodness. Me and the puppies haven't gotten to spend much time out today because, well, look at it. It's crazy. And I wanted to just do it while walking. So we're gonna go on a walk. And the second is when I inevitably eat it, which is going to happen before this is all said and done. You know, I thought that'd be funny and you'd get a kick out of it too. But I decided after my marathon one of a couple of weeks ago that I kind of want to do things a little differently. And my thought on them is that I'm going to try to keep them shorter, which is tough for me because I like doing this. I like writing lessons and I like talking, which, you know, if you've ever spent much time with me. But my goal is to keep them shorter, to keep them shorter. I'm gonna walk on the grass. And go that way, so it's not quite so much. I mean, I miss it. Usually I get to speak a minimum of 2 times a week. You know, I write lessons for you on Sunday and then I got on Wednesday. And this year has just not been that. But what I wanted to do for a lesson tonight is gonna be a little different. I've been reading a book recently, Everything is Spiritual by Rob Bell. It is a new book, but it is old material of his that he has since gone back through and added stuff to and taken stuff away and that sort of thing. It's really spoken to me this year, and it's spoken to me in the midst of pandemic and not being able to do what we normally do. I mean, we usually, on Wednesdays, tonight was supposed to be the night that we had the juniors over in the backyard. That's obviously not happening. This year, you know, was supposed to be an amazing senior year. We had like 20 people in our senior class. There were all of these things that church and youth were supposed to be, but they're just not. We're not in our building. Very, very few of us are on Sunday mornings. But most of our folks are worshiping at home. Most of our folks are engaging in other ways. And at first, on the surface, can be very disheartening because you think like, well, you know, this is what church is. This is what church has always been. But there's more to it than that. For me, it's one of those. It's been a fundamental belief that church is not just a building. The building that sits at 5502 Harvard Avenue is sacred and holy, but no more so than Mannion Park that sits behind it. Church for this year has been different. And anyway, reading this book has really kind of moved me, I guess, not moved me in a new direction, but brought me back to the original direction. Because for me, I've always believed things like this, but I'm also on church staff. I'm a part of the complex that, you know, that wants you in the building, that wants engagement in all of these things. So I've recognized for me, it's been one of those rediscovering a truth that perhaps I had forgotten. Anyway, it's been a very good book. I love Rob Bell. You know, Velvet Elvis was a book that probably, I don't want to say saved me, but certainly saved my faith, or at least repainted it in a way which I am now. So anyway, Everything is Spiritual, great book that I've been going through, and I teased a little bit of it in the lesson, in the text Devo thing yesterday. And as I'm going back through it again, I was rereading it before I sent it yesterday, and just thought, gosh, this is just so good, and it's so perfect for now. So anyway, tonight I'm gonna try to walk around on the ice and not eat it, and read to you a little bit of just where I am and what I have kind of been working through lately. But here we go. I don't know what chapter it is because I'm actually reading it on Kindle, so I can't give you a page number or anything. But it's towards the beginning of the book, and here's what he says. It says, I saw that there was no word for spiritual in the Hebrew scriptures. So basic and yet so revolutionary. There's no word for spiritual because to call something spiritual would be to imply that other things aren't. In the Bible, everything is spiritual. All of life. It's never just a job. You're never just a mom or a dad. It's never just money. It's never just your body. Nothing exists in isolation. It's all connected. He says, this blew my mind and confirmed this growing sense that I had that things were less separated than I had ever realized. Business, politics, education, art, science, caring for the earth, looking out for the poor, what you eat, where you go, sex, music, it's all spiritual. I read a story in the book of Genesis about Jacob waking up from a dream, insisting that surely God was in this place all along and I was not aware of it. Jacob is waking up from a dream, but he's waking up in a larger sense as well. He is waking up to the divine presence in life. I read in the Psalms that the earth is the Lord's and everything in it. The insistence again and again is that reality is not split. It's not one. That all of life is permeated with the divine presence. That it's all sacred. Yes, I have... Oh, you okay, babe? Well, four-legged creatures are struggling. I'm doing all right so far. Yes, I have this Bible, and it's a book about how... it's not just a book about how to get into heaven. It's a library of poems and letters and stories of bringing heaven to earth now. About this world becoming more and more the place it should be. There is very, very little in the Bible about what happens when you die. That's not what the writers were focused on. Their interest again and again is how this world is arranged. Does everyone have enough? Are the power structures tilted in favor of the vulnerable? Geese. Whew. It's too cold for flying. What was that? Does everyone have enough? Has violence diminished, or is it being kept in circulation? I read a passage about where Abraham argues with God. And then I read one where Moses argues with God. And then I read those prayers in the Psalms with those lines of, where are you, God? Why do you hide your face from me? Why have you abandoned me? The Bible is filled with people questioning God, doubting God, arguing with God. This is honest. The Bible is honest, it's angry, it's challenging. There's back and forth here between the divine and human. It's an endless conversation. It's a dialogue. It's a wrestling match. It's a dance. I saw how Jesus answered almost every question that he was asked with another question. What do you think? How do you read it? How do you interpret it? What do you say about it? This is the opposite of brainwashing, which to me is something that I needed to hear. Sorry, that was me. This is the opposite of brainwashing. This is the opposite of just believe and don't ask questions. Jesus keeps inviting people to think critically, to examine, to question, to doubt, to test, to struggle, to own it for themselves. I came across this line in the New Testament that says, test everything. And I love that. It's so simple, and yet there's so much energy in it. The word test in its original Greek could also be translated into welcome. It's the idea of welcoming the good wherever you find it, embracing it and celebrating it. It spoke to me at a time in my life when I was in a certain intellectual rigor, but it spoke to what was at the heart of life. You never just accept something because it's what someone told you or what someone said was true. You test it, you poke it, you prod it, you see what it does in the world and how it shapes you and what it leads to. And everything just kept getting more and more interesting. I saw how the entire foundation of the book of Leviticus is about grace. that slaves have been freed, and they've been given rituals to celebrate this newfound freedom in ways in which they should organize their lives around it. I saw how the word for command in the Hebrew is the word mitzvah, which can better be translated as charge. Like when you charge someone with an important task. Less something you're supposed to do, and if you don't, you're gonna get punished, and more a sacred responsibility that speaks to your deepest, truest self. I read about how the name of God keeps changing. One person uses this word and this group uses this word, and they work, but then later on someone needs something else. So we have all of these: Elohim, Yahweh, Theos, the list goes on. I saw how each of these names comes out of a particular struggle and in hopes of a time and a place, and they reflect economics and politics and a shift in consciousness. I saw how we've been trying to make sense of life and death and what kind of universe we're living in for thousands of years. The search, the response, the discovery, the discussion, the exploration is way more alive, way more fluid, and more evolving than I had ever realized. It was more like life actually is. Sweaty and disturbing and maddening and elusive and wonderful and intoxicating. The church I was living in ended up sending out a survey to the people that were coming to all the services. And one of the questions that they asked the people was how important their spiritual lives were to them. I thought, what? What do you mean spiritual lives? What other type of life is there? What our particular religious system that I was working in did was ever so subtly divide up the world into two spheres: the spiritual and the rest of life. As if the spiritual dimension of life is something that some people have and some people don't. As if spiritual means less than the everyday stuff like money and bodies and the kinds of houses and jobs that we have. As if spiritual is about another time and another place and something that you experience after you die and leave this world. They spoke about it as if some people were spiritual and some weren't. The split was subtle, but it affected everything. And what I kept reading in the Bible, with story after story, was people growing in their awareness of the connected, the sacred, and the spiritual nature of life. The church wanted to confirm me in a formal way, so they organized an ordination ceremony on a Sunday night. And before the ceremony, I was told there would be a day-long session where they would question me about my beliefs and theological knowledge. And I was so curious. I was so full of wonder of what will this be like. And I showed up on that morning and they started asking me questions, but they were all technical questions about theology. Hypothetical questions about the books of the Bible. One question was about the distinction between ontological work and ministerial function. There were all these sorts, I found a puppy. There were all these sorts of, I lost my place. I got distracted by the puppy. And there were all these questions, and this went on for hours. And partway through it dawned on me that none of these questions about my life, anywhere in there was there a question along the lines of, have you forgiven someone who has wronged you? Or what are your fears? Or are you generous? There was not one question about how I actually lived my life. There was one weird question that piqued my interest, and it was, what if an archaeologist unearthed a third letter to the Corinthians? What should we do with that knowledge? Now, however interesting the question might be to somebody somewhere, to me, that moment, it was so far removed from the people that I was interacting with, the people that I was encountering every day. So I was ordained, there was public confirmation of my role as a religious leader without any discussion of whether or not I embody the things that I was teaching or talking about. I'd given enough of the right answers, and I knew enough of the right things to say, and that was enough. And the issue was these are good people. I love them, and I still love them to this day, and I respect them. But the system that we are all a part of, the system has a glitch. The sacred and the secular are so often separated. And what you believe and how you live is removed from it. There is no spiritual life in the rest of life. They're all together. And to me, this was exactly what I needed to hear in this moment. Again, I think it speaks to something that I used to believe, but yet something that I think I somehow lost along the way. Because as I struggle with the things of what we're gonna do and what we're not gonna do, and what youth is gonna look like, come on in, and what it's not gonna look like, and how many people are in the church, or when we're gonna get back to, and what the Easter services are gonna look like, I recognize that in me, I have divided the world up. I have very much made it about the secular and the holy. But that is not what this is. After all of creation, after every work in the book of Genesis, God steps back and says that this is good. All of it. God didn't say the spiritual part is good and the rest is, stuff that you muddle through so that you can get to more spiritual. No, it's all connected. And when we divide that up, when we make one place more sacred, when we make one place more holy or one place more important, we're missing the mark. We're missing that God has created all of it. There it was. Oh. God has created all this beauty around us. Everything, all of it. And we're called to be a part of it. And what happens on Sunday mornings or Wednesday nights normally is beautiful and is good, and I long for the day when we will get back to that. Church isn't something that happens at 55th and Harvard. It isn't something that happens in a building, whether it be our building or any other building. The sacred, the holy, the spiritual is all around us, everywhere. When we divide it up, we miss out on so much of it. So I don't know what your plans are tonight. I would like to say you should go out on a walk, but I've been doing that for a while, and I will admit this is the most miserable that I've been in a long time. I couldn't turn the pages on my tablet with gloves, so my hands are numb. So maybe not a walk tonight or tomorrow night or anything like that, but get out in it. What is God doing around you? What is God doing in your very presence while you're not at school? Because it's not different. It's not as if being a pastor or a preacher is sacred and working for a church is sacred, but yet being a son or daughter or a student or a husband or a wife is any less. That is a holy responsibility that we have to exude the love of God in all of those things. And if we say things like we're Christians and Jesus followers, but yet aren't doing it in the everyday world, in the sacred that is all around us, I feel that we're missing the mark, that we're missing something. It's all sacred, it's all holy, it's all beautiful and amazing. And if you don't believe me, I mean, look where we are. I stand here in the middle of what is called on the map Mud Park. It's a small little park behind Carnegie Elementary School. It's a field that I've spent hours and hours in since we moved into the Spurley's house. And it's absolutely stunning. It's no less sacred than our sanctuary. It's no less holy than Notre Dame. It's simply amazing. And yet I get to experience it anytime that I choose to slow down enough and do so. I know that life is weird right now. We're in the midst of quarantine and a pandemic, and you're all hunkering down because it's gonna be this for like another week. But where is the holy and the sacred in your life? Where can you give something? Where can you give it your all? Where can you embrace the beauty of the creation and the opportunity that you have to participate in it today? Because we'll get back to it. We'll get back to church. We'll get back to doing all those things. But we're not there yet. So meet God where God is at, which is absolutely everywhere. God, we love you. Thank you for a beautiful day and a chance to go for a walk in it. Thank you for the chance to be a part of your creation. To walk with these youth that I call friends. Oh gosh. And to simply be. God, we are grateful for that and we love you. Amen. And that wasn't short. Really sorry. Love y'all.